Yo, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going over all the work that Steve Yzerman has done as the GM of the Detroit Red Wings. And let me tell you, there's some interesting things we're going to go over today. If you enjoyed today's video, hit the like button, subscribe for more hockey content. There was a lot of off-season moves that the Red Wings made this season. They made a lot last season too. We're going to dive in and see how much has Steve Yzerman turned over this Red Wings roster, because I'll give you a spoiler alert. It's a lot. I want to look at Ken Holland's last season with the Red Wings and what the season ended up as. You're going to see that there's some players highlighted in green. There's a reason for that, and we'll get to it at the end of the video. If you're really smart, you might be able to figure it out. If not, I'll explain it to you. Looking at Ken Holland's last season with the Red Wings, they were clearly on a slide. He was patching things up. And we're not even looking at all the seasons before where he was making all of these insane contracts, a lot of weird extensions, a lot of interesting moves that, when I say interesting, I mean pretty bad. Starting out with the top line, you have Tyler Bertuzzi, Dylan Larkin, Anthony Mantha. Pretty solid line, young guys that are part of the core that are going to grow together. Second line, we're looking at Justin Abdelkader, Andreas Athanasiou, who at the time I thought was one of the core as well, Taro Hirose, who was signed as a free agent out of Michigan State University. Darren Helm, Franz Nielsen, and Michael Rasmussen. So Rasmussen was a rookie. He was in and out of the lineup, and he was up and down in between Grand Rapids and Detroit. Franz Nielsen was a stopgap signing when Pavel Datsyuk left to go to Russia, and Ken Holland panicked and had to get somebody, and we ended up with Franz Nielsen on a 6-year contract with a no-trade clause. Darren Helm isn't what he used to be. He was a speed demon. I used to love him. But it was time to move on from him this offseason because he doesn't have anything left. And then the last few guys we're looking at here, Jakob de la Rose, Luke Glendening, Philip Zadina was a prospect / rookie at the time. He played a few games at the end of the season, and then Christopher N. So the forwards were nothing to boast about. There was a few guys where you could look at and go, they might have some bright futures. At the time, Rasmussen, in my opinion, didn't look too good. On defense, Mike Green, Philip Hronik, Danny DeKeyser, it's an okay top 3. Trevor Daley, Jonathan Ericsson. I will not even go into how much I despised Jonathan Ericsson. Madison Bowie, Dennis Cholowski. It was, again, a prospect. And then in net, Jimmy Howard, Jonathan Bernier. Howard was on his decline. Bernier was a signing as a backup, and he turned out to actually be something for the Red Wings. The 2019 offseason was when Ken Holland stepped down, and Steve Yzerman was hired as the Red Wings general manager. And he put a stamp on the team pretty quickly. In green, you can see these are the actual additions that Izerman brought in the offseason. Valtteri Filppula, who was an old face from the 2008 Stanley Cup winning team, was brought back as a free agent to fill the second line slot. Patrick Nemeth was signed as a defenseman for the top 4, maybe the top 6. Solid signing at the time. Calvin Pickard was brought in as the third goalie, and Adam Ernie was brought in a trade with Tampa Bay. And Izerman was the one that drafted Adam Ernie. And then Mo Seider, 6th overall pick, Izerman's first draft pick as the Red Wings general manager, signed his entry-level deal. When you look at subtractions, you see Thomas Vanek and Nick Kronwall retired. Luke Witkowski left as a free agent, as did Marty Ferk. He's already replacing players that had some age with them. He brought back Filppula, which is a stopgap. He brought in Ernie as a project and a player that he has been familiar with. Patrick Nemeth, a more veteran type player that wasn't really going to show a lot of offensive upside, but had some two-way and defensive capabilities. If we looked at the contract situation back then, if we went to Cap Friendly and looked at it, it was not good. A lot of long deals, high cap hits, aging veterans, everybody was over the hill. And during the season, Izerman didn't stop there. He kept putting his stamp on the team. He made 3 trades during the season. First bringing in Alex Biega from Vancouver as a 7th defenseman, and then bringing in Brendan Perlini from the Chicago Blackhawks for Alec Regula, who was a prospect for the Red Wings. Brendan Perlini was drafted before Dylan Larkin. He was brought in to see, does he have anything left in the tank? It was one of the only swings and misses, but it was actually probably worth it because Perlini was a top pick, and who knows if you could have got anything out of him. It would have been a great trade. Speaking of a great trade, Robbie Fabry for Jakob de la Rose. Biggest fleece that Izerman had done up to that point. Robbie Fabry is part of the top 6 of the Red Wings going forward. I think he is a part of this future. So in a really, really good trade for the Red Wings in this one. Getting into Izerman's first trade deadline as the GM, there was 2 trades. One, a little bit shocking to me, was Andreas Athanasiou getting shipped to the Edmonton Oilers. And then coming back was actually Sam Gagner and some draft picks. So Gagne has been re-signed twice by Yzerman now to one-year deals, but he's a good guy in the dressing room, and he's only 32 years old. And then the second trade was Mike Green getting shipped to the Oilers as well for a fourth-round pick. Green played one game for the Oilers, was injured, and immediately retired. Dmytro Timashov was claimed off waivers from the Toronto Maple Leafs. At the time, I thought that was a good waiver acquisition. He didn't really pan out with the Red Wings. Cody Golubeff was brought in from the Ottawa Senators on waivers as well, and he never really played that much, and he's since moved on. So with the 2019 trade deadline, Izerman did what he needed to do. Traded away a few assets, brought back some draft picks, more fun coupons for the draft. In the 2020 offseason, this is where things got really interesting. Lots of free agent signings, lots of movement. You can see it in this list. Justin Abdelkader, waived and bought out. Trevor Daley retired. Jimmy Howard retired. Jonathan Ericsson retired. Thank God, we're losing a lot of the older, dead weight, bad contracts on the team. Madison Bowie, Cody Golubeff, Christopher N. and Brendan Perlini all left, bringing in some new, fresh blood. Matthias Brome was brought in as a free agent. He didn't pan out. He looked good, never really found his game. I think he only scored one goal. It took him forever. Bobby Ryan was brought in on a one-year, $1 million contract to be that veteran presence. Mark Stahl was acquired in a trade with the Rangers, along with a second-round pick and a cap dump move from New York. Getting Mark Stahl and a second-round pick was actually pretty good. Mark Stahl has actually re-signed a one-year deal, $2 million with the Red Wings this season. I thought he was going to be my next Jonathan Ericsson. He's been decent. He hasn't been awesome, but with a lower cap hit, I think it's something that will take off the edge of me not liking Mark Stahl. A couple other defensemen that were brought in was John Merrill and Troy Stecher. John Merrill played at the University of Michigan. Troy Stecher was a young player with the Vancouver Canucks that fell out of favor. So those two guys immediately made the Detroit defense a lot better. To replace Jimmy Howard, Yzerman brought in Thomas Greiss. I thought Greiss would actually be the starter over Jonathan Bernier. I was wrong with that one, I'll admit it. Greiss had a really bad start to the season, finished really strong. And also Vladislav Nemesnikov was brought in as a free agent. Lots of empty net goals from this guy. I don't think he's a part of the future of the Red Wings. I think he's still filling a hole for one of the prospects to come in and eventually take his spot. Some notable things that happened in the offseason was Tyler Bertuzzi and Anthony Mantha got extensions. Mantha's was actually during the season, and as I think was Bertuzzi's was an RFA signing. Mantha was during the season. And also Dylan Larkin, give him the C. He's finally the captain of the Red Wings. During the season before the trade deadline in 2020, there wasn't a lot of movement. The only additions was Christian Djoos, who was claimed off waivers and immediately went onto the power play. He played in the top six. And again, another guy that did fall out of favor and since signed overseas. The only player that was lost was Dmytro Timashov in a trade with the Islanders for future considerations, which who the heck knows what that is. Into the trade deadline, this is where Yzerman pounced again. You're going to see Savard on the additions and the subtractions because the Red Wings brokered a deal between the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Columbus Blue Jackets, where David Savard went from the Blue Jackets to the Red Wings to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Detroit retained half of his salary and picked up a draft pick for their troubles. Patrick Nemeth was shipped out at the deadline to the Colorado Avalanche for a draft pick. John Merrill was sent to the Montreal Canadiens for a draft pick. Two guys on expiring contracts that probably weren't going to get brought back. The biggest trade and the most shocking trade happened right at the end of free agency. Bobo and I were on our podcast reacting to this live. If you want to check it out, link in the description. Anthony Mantha got traded to the Washington Capitals for Jakub Vrana, Richard Panik, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick the season after. In my opinion, an absolute fleece job. Jakub Vrana is now re-signed with the Red Wings for another 3 seasons. He's going to play on the top line, replacing Mantha. 5v5 goals in the last 2 years. Jakub Vrana is number 5. He's behind Ovechkin, Matthews, Pasternak, McDavid in 5v5 even strength goals. Unbelievable. Really good moves there, and you can see in green all the additions that the Red Wings had been making. Some guys popping back up into the lineup like Svechnikov and Lindstrom because they're young guys, they were up and down. And finally, we are where we are right now, the 2021 offseason. First thing that happened was Lucas Raymond signed his entry-level deal. Will he make the Red Wings this season? It's a good possibility if he shows up in camp and blows everybody away, but he's not going to be handed a spot. That's what Yzerman has said. A trade that happened in the offseason was Nick Leddy getting brought in from the New York Islanders for Richard Panik and a draft pick. Nick Leddy is a UFA this season. I think that he is going to be re-signed, barring any absolute failure on his part. Alex Nedeljkovic was brought in a stunning trade as well from the Carolina Hurricanes, and he was a Calder Trophy finalist, and the Red Wings gave up Jonathan Bernier and a draft pick for him. He's 25 years old, and maybe the best is to come for this guy. A little bit of a head scratcher with Chicago not re-signing Pius Suter. He was a restricted free agent. Maybe they couldn't afford him considering their cap situation with Seth Jones coming in. But the Red Wings pounced and picked up Suter, who probably will slot in on the second line as a centerman. Their last big free agent signing was Jordan Osterley. He's going to slot in on the top six, maybe be an extra. It depends on how he plays. He's nothing special. He's a two-way defenseman, but it's maybe one of Yzerman's guys that he gets in there just to be steady. The last trade that Yzerman made was actually for Mitchell Stevens, a player with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think that he is a direct replacement for Luke Glendening because he wins faceoffs. He's at about 59% on faceoffs last season. He was hurt. He did play in the run to the Tampa Bay's first Stanley Cup when they played the Dallas Stars. So I think he's going to slot in on that fourth line, I would think, and maybe even push for that third line spot with Rasmussen. Another couple of guys that signed entry-level deals was Sebastian Cossa, the Red Wings first-round pick goaltender, who has a really cocky attitude. I love it, and I hope that he turns out to be their number one coming down the road. Wyatt Newpower is also an entry-level free agent signing. And last but not least, they brought back tough guy Luke Witkowski. I think he's going to slot in with the Grand Rapids Griffins. And looking at the subtractions, this is where things really started to take shape, and Yzerman really put his mark on the team. A lot of Ken Holland guys were gone. Evgeny Svechnikov wasn't re-signed. They lost Dennis Cholowski to the expansion draft. Juice went back overseas. Richard Panik, who was there for 15 seconds, was traded for Nick Leddy. Bernier, he was traded for Nedeljkovic and then signed with the Hurricanes. Brome, back overseas. Helm, see you later, Colorado. Glendening, goodbye to the Dallas Stars. Valtteri Filppula is still a free agent, as is Bobby Ryan. Alex Biega went to the Toronto Maple Leafs, probably with the Marlies. Last but not least, the last thing that happened, Frans Nielsen is bought out of his contract. And now, finally, and I say finally, this was in 2 seasons that Yzerman turned this roster over. There is now, in my opinion, no bad contracts on the Detroit Red Wings. It's time to check out the Yzer plan. At the beginning of the video, I said there was 3 guys that were highlighted in green. They are now highlighted in red. You know why? They are the only players now, not including prospects, which Zadina, Rasmussen, Smith, Hirose, Lindstrom, Veleno, Bergen, they were all prospects at the time. Larkin, Bertuzzi, Filip Hronek, and Danny DeKeyser are the only core players left from Ken Holland's last Red Wings roster. Just think about that. In 2 seasons, 3 off seasons, Steve Yzerman has completely turned over this roster. Everybody that is highlighted in green on this depth chart is a Steve Yzerman signing, trade, or draft pick. He has now made the Red Wings his team. Dylan Larkin, Tyler Bertuzzi, and Filip Hronek, he has said they are the core. Yes, Ken Holland brought them in. That's fine. They are players that are going to be there. Danny DeKeyser might be gone after next season, and he might be one of many. If you look at UFA 2022 on the right side of the screen, those are all unrestricted free agents after this season. DeKeyser, Leddy, Stahl, Stetcher, Fabry, Nemesnikov, Gagne, Grice. There might be only 2 of them coming back, maybe 3. It depends on how their young guys come up. Every single goaltender is a Steve Yzerman trade or draft pick or signee. There aren't that many guys left. So when people are saying you need to give it time, I don't think you have to give it time anymore. I think they are on the upswing. If you're a Red Wings fan, get excited. The future is bright. The bad contracts are gone. The aging veterans are gone. The days of signing a 4th liner to a 7-year deal with a no trade clause are gone. It's not going to happen with Steve Yzerman, not on his watch. I think this year will be a little bit surprising for Red Wings fans. I think Detroit will do a little bit better than people think. I don't think they'll make the playoffs. No, I don't. Will they next year? That's where I would push for it. That's where you're going to see some maybe a little bit more aggressive free agent signings, maybe a few more aggressive trades from Yzerman. He's not shy to move guys. If someone is not performing and is not going to represent the Red Wings the way he wants, they're gone. That's what happened to Anthony Mantha. He was part of the core. Yzerman talked about him a lot. He didn't perform. See you later. So if you like the video, guys, like, comment, subscribe. Check out our website, healthyscratch.ca. We have a lot of content on there. The Buschy and Bobo podcast is a lot of fun to listen to. We have a lot of fun doing it. In the off season, a lot of fun content because there's not a lot going on. So we're kind of screwing around. If you really, really liked our original 6 draft, we have a lot more draft type things that we're going to do. Stay tuned. Take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the next one.